long before we were created, has a plan for us, purpose for us.
I was not in my passion. I was not in my purpose. And I felt that.
The quantity of suffering you'll have to go through,
Yeah.
the quantity of illness that you'll have to endure, the quantity of a single season that you'll have to endure. Noah, who is building the ark, his purpose is not to be a shipbuilder.
You know, sometimes we start things and because it gets painful, we want to give up.
So Deborah used to always say, on purpose, for
a purpose.
On purpose, for a purpose.
Yes.
Deborah was my great friend. She was the first one to introduce me to Buc-ee's, her and Gary. And
wait, what did they take you there for?
We were in Texas, and she's a native of Dallas, and so.
Oh, and you had never heard about it, so she's like, "Let's go get some briskets."
I was diehard Wawa, and so I thought Wawa was the stuff, and she was like, "Let me introduce you to what heaven's really like." And I remember going in and seeing like everything was the biggest. It's like Dubai, like the biggest bathrooms, and there was like paintings all over the walls of the bathrooms, and you can like buy the paintings. It's really weird, but like
as many times as I've eaten things from Buc-ee's, I have never stepped into a Buc-ee's.
Into a bathroom.
Into a Buc-ee's, period.
Oh, you've never been into a Buc-ee's.
You just always bring me things back.
It's a Walmart meets Wawa, but it's glorious and wonderful. And so anyway, I'm going to get off my Buc-ee's kick. I should have been wearing my Buc-ee's shirt for this one, but you know, it is what it is. But Deborah is a great person. I'm saying was like past tense, like she's not alive. Deborah's a great person. She's taught me a lot. She's very caring, very considerate, heart of Jesus like crazy. She always used to pray for people, and when she did, she would say, "Lord, I know you made them on purpose, for a purpose."
Yeah.
Thought that was always powerful, the idea of purpose. Mark Twain says that the two best days in a person's life is the day they're born and the day they found their purpose.
You know, a lot of people don't feel like they found their purpose. A lot of people go a long time trying to find their purpose. And although everyone is made for something very specific, there is one thing that I know for a fact is in the Bible that tells us that we all have to do. I'll let you guess it.
What? I have no clue. What could it be?
To be and make disciples.
Yeah, that's our mission as a church. So I'm a pastor at a church. You obviously work there, and
it's based off the Great Commission. You know that God calls us. Well, Jesus calls us to go out and do just that. So.
Yep, Matthew 28:19, going to all the nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey my commandments. So Great Commission is based off that, and that's what we live by. It's what our model is to.
It's what our purpose is.
It's what
as a collective, being, all of us, it's our purpose. It's not to just, a lot of people, I was watching something on Instagram the other day where Pastor JJ was talking about how a lot of people focus on just sharing the gospel, not realizing that the Great Commission calls us to make disciples of people. It's not just letting people know, a lot of people say, the way that I act, the way that I carry myself, they know I'm a Christian and they think that that's enough. But it's not just letting people know that you're a Christian. It's not just sharing the good news. It's discipling people, teaching them about the Bible, like having those conversations, fellowship, all that.
Yeah. So I saw a YouTube comment earlier today. They said something along the lines of, I am so jealous of people who know what they want to do in life. And that really struck me because I might be one of the rare people that know what they want to do, and I feel like I'm doing it.
Yeah.
I guess there's a lot of people that don't know.
A lot. People do. We have something called Connect cards at our church, and people do write on there that they are wondering if they can speak to somebody about finding their purpose or what they can get connected in to find their purpose. Because there's multiple avenues to figuring out what you are specifically called and made to do. Aside from making disciples, there's a way of going about that. And so, people are constantly asking, like, in different ways, how can I volunteer here to find my purpose? Can I pray with somebody to find
Yeah.
my purpose? This is what I do for a living. How can I use that to find my purpose? And so, there's multiple avenues in finding that. You just got lucky.
Yeah, so I think one of the most important things to probably realize is that I am a crazy exception. Like I'm I'm doing something that I love and I get paid to do that. Not a lot of people get to experience that, and I think that I just need to understand that's rare. Like I feel like the Lord called me to be in ministry, and I just have a really rare and unique opportunity to be able to devote my work days to that. Not just rare within churches, rare within America, but rare within the world. There's not a lot of churches internationally where people can do that. And then rare even more so in history. So I think I'm not relatable. Like the case of me is I'm not relatable, but I do want to talk about I do want to talk about relatable people.
Yeah.
Paul, right? He is super relatable to most people when it comes to purpose. So Paul had his job and then he had his purpose.
Yeah.
I've been telling people a lot, especially like our students when I went to camp and was just sharing my heart with them, is it's okay to have your job and then your ministry. Paul was writes the majority of the New Testament, um, is just a great man of God, historic, obviously, but most people don't realize he had a full-time job.
Yeah.
Like he was a tent maker. That's what he did. He made tents, but you never hear him brag about it, talk about it too much. You might see it once or twice. The majority of what he was proud of and what he bragged about the most was, I am a servant of the Lord Jesus Christ. And so you see about his ministry. I think that's powerful. I think there's a lot of people that get caught up in they're a doctor, they're an attorney, they're a physician, they're a
Yeah.
therapist, and they think that's kind of the go-to.
And there's a lot of people that think being on staff at a church is the only purpose that you can have. Unless you're doing that, you're not living out your purpose. I know we used to get a lot of interns, um, to come and help out during the summer and like learn how to do ministry. And some of them, they're going to school for something else completely and they're coming to intern there because that's the direction that they want to go in. And when you start asking them questions about what their purpose is, what they feel called to do, they're kind of in that trying to figure it out. But in their head, they're like, be on staff at a church, be on staff at a church. And a lot of people get that confused. You don't have to be on staff at a church, to live out your purpose. Like you just said, you can live out your purpose within your community, within your family, at your job. There's many ways to live that out, even volunteering at a church, starting something that you want to see or getting involved in something that's already established.
Yeah. So you can actually be a Christian who's working at a church and be in disobedience to God.
That's right.
Because maybe he didn't call you to do that. Maybe God wants you to be a doctor, and he's gifted you in that, and he wants you to be able to evangelize in rooms that, as a pastor, I'll never be able to evangelize, in the ER, in the operating room, in the waiting rooms, in the patient rooms. And so yeah, I think that's one of the most important things to understand right off the top is I am not relatable. And so it just is true. So we're going to Japan and soon, and we're excited about that. But in kind of prep for this, I was reading about this thing, and I'm probably gonna butcher the word ikigai.
How do you spell it?
Ikigai. I'm probably gonna butcher that, but it basically, if I understand it correctly, boils down to this idea of purpose being found in the center of all of these kind of aspects of our life. So it's like a Venn diagram, but 4 circles instead of
Okay.
2. So at the top, you have what you love.
Mm.
Then on the left, you have what you're good at. The bottom, you have what you can be paid for. And then on the right, you have what the world needs. And so, like, for example, um, between the circles of what you're good at and what you get paid for, that's probably your profession, right? I'm good at numbers, and somebody's going to pay me to
Be an
crunch numbers,
accountant
so
or
I'm going to be an
yeah.
accountant, right? So that's your
Mm-hmm.
profession. And so you kind of realize these things, what you love and what you're good at. I love basketball, I'm decent at it, that's my passion. So I have my career, I have my profession, but I also have my passion. As you kind of like highlight all those things and kind of figure out what it is, in the center is the word again that I'm going to butcher, and it is the purpose. I just wonder, for most people, I mean, what are your thoughts on how do they go about finding their purpose? Is there one purpose for their life? Um,
No, I feel like there's multiple. I feel like you have purpose as long as you're breathing.
yeah,
I feel like God is still trying to carry something out as long as you are breathing. And again, He'll do it with or without you. So, as long as you continue to pray to stay in His purpose and have His will done in your life, He'll continue on. He'll use you as a vessel. What's that verse where He goes, Emiaki?
here I am. Here I am, Lord.
I learned my
Use me.
Bible in Spanish first,
Yeah,
so I will continue to do this. As long as you continue to do that, God will continue to give you a purpose and give you direction in your life. I don't think that there's just like one purpose. I feel like you'll have multiple moments in your life where, like, oh, this is why X, Y, and Z happened, or this is why I'm serving here, working here, surrounded by these people, met these people, traveled to this place. Um, but I don't think that there's like one specific purpose. I think that one of the ways to find your purpose is what you just mentioned, is like just really analyzing how you were made, how you
hmm
were built, and to also be willing to be obedient and open to whatever God wants to do. Try to listen to what God is saying and just be used as a vessel. I mean, you just got to be willing, I feel, to be able to find what it is, and always alert about your surroundings and the purpose that might be there. Always trying to find a reason why.
yeah. Yeah, so Paul says in Ephesians chapter 2, verse 10, he says, "For we are God's masterpiece, and he has created us new in Christ Jesus so that we can do the good things he planned for us long ago." And so Paul is saying that God has, long before we were created, has a plan for us, purpose for us. And he's kind of broadened what that is. He says good things. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's even more evidence to show that there are kind of different avenues. It's kind of the thing I talked about. It's the free will of many trees. Is
Mm-hmm.
God opens this garden and says you can explore all of these different trees, just don't go this route. And I think in the same way, God can fulfill a lot of purposes in our lives if we make ourselves available to Him in that sense. How do you feel about you when it comes to purpose? Do you feel like you're living it out? How
I
so?
feel like I'm somewhat living it out. The general purpose of being and making disciples. And at our church, I work with community groups. And, we're just constantly trying to find ways to disciple people and to help each other out as leaders as well. Like, I attend groups. I'm going to start leading a group soon, but I attend groups, and we're just always trying to help each other along this journey. So, in that sense, yes, I am living that out. As far as what I feel like God has called me to do, um, I've always felt like I've had a heart for missions. And so I travel a lot, but I need to
Yeah.
be a little bit more intentional about finding opportunities to serve in other places. And I know that when I go to these places, everyone knows I'm a believer. I've
Yeah.
never sat in a place and not shared that. But I feel like I'm called to work with children, which we do with fostering, but also to do that in an extent at other places, like other countries, and just equip people more or less.
Yeah, and maybe sometimes God is in a season of preparation with us. Maybe that is to you'll see that come to fruition soon, and God's just in a season of preparation with you.
Yeah.
I do know this: you can definitely tell when you're not in your purpose.
Yeah.
Um, if you're watching and you are in a place where you don't feel fulfilled, you're kind of just running on fumes. You feel empty. You don't feel like there's a meaning to what you're doing. I don't think you're in your purpose. I think when you're operating in your purpose, you feel like you're making a difference.
Yeah.
I think there's just like this innate. It almost feels natural, and it feels like you're. I don't know how to explain it. When I used to play basketball, there would just be times where you would have like a hot hand, and so in basketball, you would I don't know. You just get hot all of a sudden. You're like, oh, I'm shooting tonight, and so you knew like, oh, all right, I'm like, give me the ball, and it'd just be like everybody be like, feed him the ball. He's gonna go and go and go and go, and you knew like that tonight I'm gonna be a scorer, and even if you missed a shot, they would do. I want you to guess what this is.
Oh,
As
this to
somebody
me.
who doesn't know basketball, what would you think is that called? What do you think a heat check is? If I'm like shooting, I'm just like lights out, hitting them. I'll do a heat check. I'll
Which
just like I'll
is,
just like shoot from like I don't know, almost half court, just to see like how hot am I right
oh,
now.
you
Like
mean like
like
show off?
no, it wasn't. It's not really show off. It's more like I'm trying to see like how much do I have this right now? Like, can I just go off insane? Um, and so that's a heat check. But you knew that night, like it felt like the rim was like the size of a swimming pool, and you were like shooting a marble. Like it just felt
Mm,
like you can't miss.
yeah.
And I think when you're operating in your purpose, that's kind of how it feels. And you're gonna miss shots. Every once in a while, you're gonna drop balls here and there, but you're gonna feel like, oh yeah, I'm shooting the shots right now, like
Yeah.
today. Um, there's probably people that feel like I can barely dribble today,
Aw, okay.
and that's all right. That's probably a lot of people.
I know, I know. It's just a sad reality. It's just a sad reality. I know that there's people that are, I mean, I've been there before, working in corporate like so many years. I'm like just now, starting to get into ministry. Like,
And again, nothing wrong with corporate. Right?
no,
Some
nothing
people are
wrong with
called to work
corporate.
corporate.
Nothing wrong with
It was
corporate
just
at
for
all.
you
It was
specifically, yeah.
exactly. For me, it was I was not in my passion. I was not in my purpose, and I felt that when I was working at corporate. Now I feel like I'm making a difference. There's life change around me, and I feel like I'm decent at what I'm doing. You know what I mean?
You
So
are.
so it's like I feel like I am. I've been called to be and make disciples, and that's exactly what I'm doing. And there's a passion in that for me. But working in corporate, I feel like I didn't feel that, but then I also like missed opportunities. I feel like I wasn't looking for the opportunity to be able to bring that aspect of me into that workplace. Like everyone knew I was a believer. Every time I had an opportunity, I would talk to people about Christ. But like to really try to live out my purpose there, I feel like I was just so stuck on the fact that I didn't like being there that I just was like missing the opportunity. And so
Mm.
that's why I mean, like, oh man, because there's a lot of people that are in corporate jobs and have such great opportunity. And I just feel like you have to be intentional about looking for what the purpose and the reason is. I always tell people like you either bend to the will of God or he will break you until you do what he wants you to do. I mean, we have free will, but if you're constantly asking God to have his will in your life, then it's going to get to the point where there's pressure. And so when we're in corporate jobs and there's somebody there that God knows needs somebody to journey with them, and we're just stuck on the fact that we're working a corporate job that we hate and we don't look around us for opportunity, we're going to stay there. He's
Mm-hmm.
not going to open up a different door, move you to a different place, or do anything like that until you are intentional about what he wants you to do there, what your assignment is there. That makes sense.
You can be in a season of trying to find your purpose and miss out on the purpose of that season.
Exactly.
I think you think of like when you think of Noah, who is building the ark. um, his purpose is not to be a shipbuilder, right? That
Yeah,
that that was just the means to the end, which was to be able to be what continued the lineage of humanity. The
exactly.
boat process was just a part of that, and it probably didn't feel good. I
No,
mean, you imagine all the people who are looking at Noah. Mind you, remember it's never rained when that's happening. Rain was not a thing, and
exactly.
so people are all laughing and probably mocking this guy Noah who is building a boat. He has no clue about what to build or how to build. He's not a builder
Yeah.
because he's claiming that water is going to fall from the sky.
Can you imagine bringing a bunch of animals on the boat too? You're not even asking like a bunch of other humans to come and join you. You're like bringing animals.
So that crazy neighbor Noah over there who has no idea how to build a boat has decided to build one of the biggest boats I've ever seen, if not the biggest one, because he claims that water is going to fall from the sky and flood everything. I mean, obviously it didn't feel good being in that season, but it was a season of preparation so that he could actually fulfill his purpose, so that his family could repopulate the world again. So, it's important to, even if you don't like the season you're in, to try to figure out what the purpose of that season is in hopes, and actually not even hopes, but in confidence to know that God will eventually reveal your true purpose.
Yeah, he
And
works everything together for our good.
yeah, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I love that verse because
Yeah.
it's not to say everything is good.
Yeah.
It's not to say everything feels good. It's much like, I think it was Deborah that kind of explained that to me. It's much like a cake. If you take all the ingredients of what are the ingredients of cake, you know better than me. You're a baker.
I am not a baker.
Well,
I'm a cooker.
you're more of a baker than me. So you got what?
Like
Flour,
flour, eggs,
egg, vanilla
uh,
extract, maybe
milk.
milk. Okay, so you take all those ingredients, take a handful of flour, and just like pop in your mouth. Like
It's disgusting.
nobody's gonna enjoy that. Even vanilla extract, right? Just like straight to
It's
the
disgusting.
absolutely disgusting. Like
You only put a little bit anyways, too,
yeah,
when you're
it's like
baking.
so those ingredients are disgusting. They're not good. And yet somehow when a baker knows exactly how to take those ingredients and not just what ingredients to use, but the quantities of those
You get
ingredients,
a
come on
moist cake.
somebody, the quantity of suffering you'll have to go through,
Yeah.
the quantity of illness that you'll have to endure, the quantity of a single season that you'll have to endure. When he knows just the amount of those things to be able to work what he's doing, to be able to bake that cake that's going to be delicious, to be able to put you in that life that you had always hope for and that you'll feel fulfilled in. That's what that verse is. He takes the good, the bad, and the ugly, and he works it for the good of those who love him
Yeah.
and are called according to his purpose.
His purpose. His purpose.
His purpose.
Yeah.
That's powerful to me for sure. So what is the downside of people not finding their purpose, or like what is the downside of people waiting too long?
Um, I don't know about waiting too long. I've never really seen anybody wait too long. I surround myself with people that elevate me, so
We're all
I
about
can't
that
even.
elevator friend life. We
Yeah,
want people that are beyond us and
make that
ahead of
make me feel
us.
dumb. Just
Yeah,
make me feel dumb and teach me something new.
that is one of the best lessons in
So,
life that you want to learn
so I can't
is,
say I've witnessed anybody like
I mean, I have.
wait too long. Um,
I've just seen people miss opportunities. They
I've seen
just,
people miss opportunities,
but
yeah,
I
but
mean like most opportunities, like they've just settled. I mean, you've heard that statistic of just how many deathbed regrets there are of people who are just like, I
yeah,
regret not doing X, Y, and Z. I regret. It's more regrets of not doing things than of actually doing things. I regret
yeah.
I never spoke to this more. I didn't travel more. I didn't whatever more. Um,
I guess that would be it. That would be the downfall of waiting too long is having regrets when you're on your deathbed. And as far as like not finding your purpose or being lost a lot in that and not being intentional about finding it, I just feel like you end up doing a lot of things that you shouldn't be doing. So, on the one hand, you wait too long, you'll regret not doing enough. But on the other hand, if you just decide not to be intentional, like in the midst of it, it'll feel like you're doing a lot of nothing, nothing that amounts to anything.
Yeah. I feel for people who are just letting life coast by. It's kind of, I get the convenience of letting life coast by. You kind of just sit and can relax, but life goes by so fast, and before you know it, life has passed you by.
Yeah.
And you can definitely miss some beautiful opportunities of God trying to do something in your life, and
Yeah.
the season can come and go, and you miss the opportunity. You might never be able to get
Yeah.
it back. Sometimes I love the verse where God says that He will um, redeem the years of the locusts or something that the locusts took away, and it was a statement to the nation of Israel of because there are people who later in their life they finally find their purpose and they think, man, I found it too late, I missed out. And it's this idea that God can redeem the years you missed.
Yeah.
It's never too late. God can really do some cool things. Um,
I don't think that anybody ever gets by in life without having that feeling. I feel like everyone comes into a place where they encounter Christ and they feel like, I wish I would have done this sooner.
Going back to like the last episode or the episode before that, the person, it's probably the person you're with should probably be pretty aligned with your purpose. You think?
Yeah. Pushing you to it too,
Yeah.
not just, oh, yeah, we'll get to it. Oh, yeah, I know. Alignment, but also accountability, and understanding that you have to give your plans to the Lord. It says it a couple of times in the Bible where it talks about, many other plans of man, but it's the will of the Lord that it's going to prevail. And so I think that when you're in a relationship, or if you're in your singleness season, even the friendships that you have, everyone needs to be in one accord with that fact, pushing you towards your purpose, understanding that it's the will of the Lord that's going to prevail, pushing you to do that. And, not just in alignment like, oh, yeah, we all love the Lord. We're all going to conferences together, or we're going to serve together. It's not just that. It's like, what is your purpose in that? Are you
Yeah.
living in your purpose?
Yeah, you can't make your own purpose. I think people are trying to write
No.
their own stories.
Yeah.
I heard this phrase, purpose is determined before it's discovered. The purpose it was already there. It was determined before, like that verse I read earlier. It was determined before you were even a thought in your parents' mind.
Yeah.
And so it's not a matter of you writing your own purpose. It's a matter of you discovering what God wants to do in your life. And I think if you're looking, some of the things you can look for is stuff like, where am I gifted? Not where are you like exceptional. I think of there's a ton of places in scripture where God calls people to a certain purpose and they in their own mind think they're horrible at it. Like he's calling Moses, who apparently had some kind of speech impediment, to be the speaker of the people of Israel in front of Pharaoh in Egypt. He's calling David, who's a shepherd boy who doesn't even have the respect of his brothers and his dad, to be the king of Israel, right? And so you just you're gonna naturally have to develop some of that skill, but I think you'll have a decent idea of what God is calling you to do.
It's not just like what you're good at though. It's also like making sure that because of that you're going to succeed in what God is calling you to do. Not just a lot of people, they'll look for things to try to be good at. You have to kind of survey and be mindful. Tread carefully when you're like, this is what I'm great at.
You mean not all people who think they're great singers are great singers?
Is that a jab at me? Better not be a jab at me. Just like, when we do high impact and we're doing like interviews, we ask people, what would others say about you? What are you good at?
Yeah.
Don't just go with the flow with what you think you're great at. Make sure that it's something that a lot of people also think that you're great at, which, goes hand in hand with what you were saying earlier. Like, what would you get paid for? What are you good at should
Could you
go hand
imagine?
in
I'm
hand
I'm
with that.
called to this. They're like, really? Because I would not pay you a dime to be able to touch this. Like, you're not touching. You're not baking a cake for me. You're not doing that. I'm not paying you. Yeah, I think having good friends.
Yeah.
The Bible
And
talks
not
about
looking
that.
for affirmations from
Wisdom.
other people either. Like not constantly seeking the validation of everybody else, but just make sure, like, if you think that you're good, like, at planning things, that reflects in all areas of your life, at work, with planning in your home, planning things with your friends. If you think you're a great singer, make sure that aligns with, you know, people in the house not telling you to be quiet all the time or telling you you are not great. Serving in a local church or being involved in some kind of group outside of church. Like, just make sure that you're not just thinking like, I'm good at this, I should do this for the rest of my life, and then you're like constantly hitting the wall because it's not something that others think that you're good at also. You know what I mean? So just kind of being mindful of that too.
Yeah, I going back to the regret things just for a second. I think a lot of people are just paralyzed because of the fear of failure, and so they just are scared to fail. One thing I can tell you is I am in a place in life that I never thought I never even thought what could be a thing. Or like I remember always feeling called to ministry,
Yeah.
but growing up in a tiny little Spanish church of like 30 people in a literal house that they converted into a church, I didn't know that. How do I go from that to what I feel like God is calling me to do, which is to like share the gospel with hundreds and thousands of people.
Do you think that you were like taken on a wave, or like how did you step into that? I mean, I know how we got to the church that we're at now, but how did you step into that?
So, one of the first things is I just jumped into unknown waters. I remember one of the first things I did is I just felt like I felt like I felt like I had capped out where I was at, and I had kind of learned everything, and I just needed to endeavor and explore more. So I remember reaching out. I was in Tampa at the time. I reached out to like over 50 pastors through an email of churches that I would want to be at or I would want to pastor at. I wasn't trying to pastor anything. It's just like these are the kind of churches that I feel like when I have a picture in my head of what God wants me to do, this is it. So I sent an email to like 50 pastors and nobody replied
Stop.
except one. And I basically the email was, "Hey, I am just a young guy in college. I want to learn from you. I promise I won't get in your way. I won't bother you or anything. I just want to be a fly on the wall and just observe." So I wasn't asking for much. I wasn't asking for a meeting or anything. Just let me in the building. And he was gracious enough to let me in, and not only let me in, but he spent hours with me um, over the course of quite a while and invested in me and just let me um, shadow. And so, yeah, one of the just stick your neck out and just like risk somebody saying no to you. I mean, what's the worst that can happen? I think a lot of people are just scared, and I often tell people, what's the worst that can happen?
Yeah.
That's an exercise I like to do often when I'm scared of doing something. Is I ask myself, what's the worst that can happen, and I think of the absolute worst case scenario.
Yeah. I feel like a lot of people do ask about mentorship. Now that you mentioned that, they're always like, oh, do you guys have like a mentorship program, or like, are there mentors that you have or no, or anything like that? And that is a good, great first step when it comes to finding your
Yeah.
purpose, is trying to find a mentor.
Yeah, he and mentors don't always the mentor mentee relationship is not like a contractual agreement. Like if most mentors probably wouldn't even know that the mentee considered them a mentor.
Yeah.
It was just like I took you under my wing for a little bit and I just taught you some stuff. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody would call me a mentor. I know I've definitely tried to take time to just share what I've learned because it's like somebody did that for me, so why not share what I've learned?
Exactly.
So anyway, that's what he did. And then God kind of just continued to open doors. There's a time shortly after where an opportunity opened up, and it was a good opportunity, but not a God opportunity. Yeah, that's important. A good opportunity versus a God opportunity. I preached on that a couple weeks ago. How the enemy often won't tempt you with what's bad; it'll tempt you with what's good,
Yeah.
because we can convince ourselves to derail from God's path with a good path. And so I almost said yes to it, but you talked me
Me,
back
no,
into
it
my
was the
senses.
Lord.
Well, you
I
prayed.
literally remember sitting at work and I was like, I put my phone down. See, the thing, I mentioned this in one of our other podcasts where I was like, you have to lead. And so I pray for you every night because you have to consider me in everything. And were we even engaged yet?
I don't know. I don't remember.
All I know is I told you because our intent was always to get married. So I was like, you know what? I need to learn how to be submissive. You are going to pick what church we're going to be at, but I need you to consider me in this. So, I had been praying to God for a while about the church that I felt like we were called to versus the church where he got the good opportunity. I think there's a verse in the Bible that talks about how not everything that's good is beneficial. And so, in that season, I was praying for that. And I remember when you text me and I was at work and you're like, oh, yeah, I just walked out. It was great, blah, blah, blah. So excited. And then you told me that at the same time that you were walking out, somebody from the church that I felt, well, you didn't tell me at the moment, but the church that I felt we were called to had texted you and you were beating around the bush. So I put the phone down and I
Yep.
literally remember telling God, like, you better take care of this because you told us it was this church, but he's thinking about taking the opportunity over here. And I think over the span of a week, because I told you, like, take some time to pray about it before you actually decide, then you decided to go to where we were called. And the thing is that we were called where we're at now. But when we first went there was a lot of things that you saw. And I remember telling you, like, you're seeing those things because God wants you to be the change for those things.
Yeah.
Don't ever go to a church thinking that because you dislike something, you have to leave. You can be the reason why that will change. And it's crazy because, where that journey took you, you literally were in the ministry that would cause all those changes. And now you're in a role to make the changes that you saw that God put in your heart the very first time we went there. Just
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, and so from that point on, I've just tried to be faithful with what God's given me, and
Yeah.
I haven't tried to be opportunistic or climb ladders or anything like
Exactly.
that.
Just been faithful to what God has told you to do
I've
there.
just tried to be faithful, and I just know that God. I just feel like I want to be faithful where I'm at. I'm not trying to grow or gain or anything like that. And God has been gracious enough to give me more and more influence, and I just want to take that influence that He gives me and reach more people for Christ. And
Exactly.
so I think if I can stay in that mindset, I'll be able to continue to just see God do some cool things in my life. The other thing I didn't mention is that I always felt called to ministry. Remember, I have a picture of me like preaching when I'm 4 years old. I'm in a suit, like preaching at a family reunion, and
Yeah.
I probably don't even really my vocabulary is not great, but I'm just fake preaching because I would watch my grandfather preach, I'd watch my uncle preach.
There's multiple pictures of you.
Yeah,
Little sweater
those are
vests.
not going to make the Internet Archives. But even though I felt called to that, I knew from that age what the Lord was calling me to do. I also saw like I saw the trouble that comes with purpose. I think people don't really, right? I'm talking about purpose, how it's great, you feel fulfilled, all that, but there's trouble that comes with purpose. There's hardship that comes with
Yeah.
purpose. I saw my grandfather have a stroke, and be paralyzed and bedridden for 10 years until he died. Then when I'm living with my uncle, who was a pastor, he has a stroke, and they probably never said it, but I can imagine he's got a pretty stressful job, and stress leads to those things. And so, like, I was just gonna peace out and do like medicine. So I have a degree in an undergrad degree in medicine. I was gonna do that because that's where there's good money,
Yeah.
and I don't have to. deal with the stress of people, but I knew I was going to be disobedient. And it was kind of that Jonah story. And I remember, right, I was even working at a doctor's office when I graduated,
Yeah, you
and
were.
looking into PA schools. And again, like, I'm stubborn up to a point, and then God kind of just like, he just has his way. And it was like, dude, you're going to be miserable your entire life if you keep going this route.
Yeah.
And I just came to my senses. I kind of just submit. I'm like, yeah, you know what, God, you're right. And I'm just gonna. And so that was the scary, like, okay, I'm gonna commit to ministry. I don't know how or what or how it's gonna happen or what to do or anything like that. I'm just gonna kind of trust you, Lord. And He did. He opened doors.
Yeah.
And so it's been really rewarding and really cool to see. And I would have never thought I'm at where I'm at today. And thank God. And of course, plenty of hardship with that, plenty of difficulty and all of that. But it's been super rewarding for
Yeah.
sure. So
Even in that difficulty, though, my favorite all time Bible verse, First Peter 5:10. And at the end of that, he tells you that he's there to restore you, to establish you, to affirm you. And I just feel like even through all of that, sometimes when you're in the midst of your purpose, don't forget that God is going to be with you through it, but he's also going to make you better after the fact. That he's going to definitely restore you. Whatever you've lost because of your purpose, God is going to give back to you tenfold, 100-fold. Don't get stuck in the I am living my purpose, but all of this stuff is going wrong and I just want to give up. Don't do that. When you're living out your purpose, you are going to have hardships.
yeah,
Things are going to happen, but you have to remember that God is with you. He's going to see you through it. He's going to do all the good things that First Peter 5:10 says.
yeah. And here's what I've learned is that people don't mind pain as long as it has purpose.
Exactly.
People don't mind pain as long as there's purpose attached to it, right? If these Olympic guys that we're watching, the pain that they're going through, they don't mind it if they can win a medal.
Yeah.
It's when there's pain and an absence of purpose where people begin to just suffer and have regret and all that stuff. And
Yeah.
so, whether there's purpose or not, the pain's going to be there in life. I think that's an obvious.
Yeah.
Jesus said, in this world you will have troubles. So whether you find your purpose or not, you're going to go through pain. Why not go through that pain with a meaning and with a purpose?
And don't lose focus of that either. Don't lose sight of that either. Sometimes we start things and because it gets painful, we want to give up, but don't.
You ever seen that little meme where the guy's like gold mining and you can see the full tunnel. Obviously he can't because he's in the tunnel, but you can see it. And he had given up right before he had hit that gold. I think a lot of people miss out right when God is ready to do something great in them, because the reality is the enemy has some plans too,
Yeah.
and he will do everything he can to rob people of their purpose. And man, he knows.
He can see the way things are moving.
He knows.
He doesn't have to know the plans of the Lord, but he knows. He was up there with God, and before he got kicked out, so he knows how God moves. He doesn't have to know what's in his mind. He knows how God moves, and when he sees God moving in your life a certain way, he knows you are bound for purpose. He knows that something great is about to happen, and so he's working overtime to keep you from fulfilling that or accomplishing what God has called you to do. And you just have to remain steadfast, stay grounded in your faith, in your hope, continue to push forward and try to see, the blessing that comes from that, the life change that comes from that.
I wanted to pitch a series that didn't work. This is totally unrelated, and I guess we're wrapping up. But maybe they'd want this as a podcast. I pitched a series called Satan's Schemes, and it was not. I know it was good, right? Satan's Schemes.
I was gonna say the book that is it John Bevere that wrote The Bait of Satan?
Yes.
Not the same
No.
thought.
So
Process. Okay,
Satan's
go ahead.
schemes would be, well, I don't know. I don't remember the premise of Beta Satan, but Satan's schemes would just be the acknowledgement of like that the enemy is at work and what he does. So think more like Screw Tape Letters from C.S. Lewis, where you're reading the plans of how they're going to ruin what they title us as their test subjects.
Yeah.
But anyway, I pitched a series called Satan Schemes just because I think a lot of people fail to realize that we are in spiritual warfare. Whether you read it or whether you understand that or not, or recognize that or focus on that, if you just want to kind of work and go home and watch Netflix and do your thing and not realize that there's an enemy that absolutely
Don't get lukewarm.
that doesn't just like you don't just rub him the wrong way. It's not like you're quirky and he doesn't
He
like
hates
absolutely hates you to the point where if he could kill you, he'd want to do it slowly just to watch you suffer.
you. Oh my gosh.
When you understand how much the enemy hates you because we have the imago Dei, the we are created in the image of God, you really want to figure out what he's doing, right? Like any war, you want to know what your enemy is doing, what are their plans, how are they going to attack you. And so, I think the enemy really turns up the heat when it comes to purpose. And when he senses you're close to your purpose, he will turn up the heat. That might be one of the indicators of why your life is going crazy. Maybe, just maybe. I can't say for sure, but maybe in some instances, it's because the enemy has a sense that you are close to what God is trying to do with your life, and he's trying to do everything he can to stop you.
Exactly. You got to fight the good fight.
Yeah.
All the way to the very end.
Yeah. And so, speaking of fight the good fight, we got a funeral coming up. We leave tomorrow for a funeral. And so, by the time this gets aired, we would have been on the way back. But my hope is that when we go there, for those who are going to be there who don't know the Lord,
Yeah, he did mention a lot of the atheists were going to be present.
yeah, atheists, agnostics, maybe people that are church hurt or whatever. The hope is I have a cool privilege to be able to speak a little bit there. The hope is that they would be able to find their purpose, because I know for a fact that people who don't have Jesus don't have purpose.
Yeah.
How can you when you don't your creator has given you something, you don't know who your creator is, you know?
And what you were created for.
Yeah.
You know, you were
Yeah.
created for
Yeah.
something very specific.
They're like a watch that doesn't tell time, you know? And so when they figure out, oh, I'm a watch and I'm supposed to tell time, that's where you really feel fulfilled. So the hope is that I can share a little bit about purpose there, and that my family member who passed, that his life can continue to be a blessing to people, because even at his celebration of life, hopefully somebody makes a decision to find their purpose through Jesus. So
Yeah.
if you want to hear about Satan's schemes, my awesome series that got nixed at our teaching meeting, so it's just free reign. Let us know in the comments if you want us to talk about spiritual warfare. I don't like talking about that much, but
There's a lot of people that hyper focus on that.
yeah, I like to talk about it in a healthy kind of dose.
Yeah.
50% God, 50%. No, that doesn't sound good.
You just have to, it's just to the point where you have to understand what he's doing so that you can know how to like better prepare yourself, dressing yourself in the armor of God, and, fighting the good fight, and never getting lukewarm, like things like that. But to be paying too much attention to what he actually is doing, it's like, God is with me.
Could you imagine the team that was against me when I had a hot hand, I was shooting, and all they focused on was they got a shooter, can't miss, but they didn't focus on their own offense.
Exactly.
See, I wrapped that all around.
Anyway, so let's wrap this up then.
It is wrapped up. We love you guys. We appreciate those of you who are watching. We hope it blesses you. For us, it's just conversation, but hopefully it blesses you and it sparks conversation in your lives and your homes. And if you have any suggestions or thoughts or anything like that,
if you're trying to find your purpose, you can also comment below.
Yeah.
Let us know how we can help. I would love to help. I'm sorry, cut you off. I just needed to make sure that they heard that.
No,
Go ahead.
we're always here to serve. That's our purpose.
That's right.
So we love you guys. Catch you next time.